So on a typical day in July 2026, I woke up to sausage and toast for breakfast. It was very good. But by lunch, my blood was so boiled, I was sharing Mr. Magoo themes and calling Sony so out of touch with the modern gaming audience that it wasn't even funny. When Monday hit, I was breaking Sony narratives faster than a $2 belt spanking for lying to my parents. But that isn't the point I'm trying to communicate here. Hello, I am Sanji Himura for the Sanji Himura Experience on the W2 Report. Now, Sony's recent mystery for not communicating anything to the customers whom Sony should be beholden to is a very important tell on what they think of you. They think of you, the customer, as consumers, whales, or anything else you can think of. It all started back in March 2026, when Sony quietly removed all mention of single-player games on PC. Sure, games like Marvel Tokon and Marathon are still available on PC, but no more Spider-Man, no more Last of Us, no more single-player exclusives. Those are all within the ecosystem of PlayStation. Why? According to Herman Hulse, the CEO of the Studio Business Group at Sony Interactive Entertainment, speaking at a recent town hall, and I'm paraphrasing here, he wants titles such as Wolverine or Ghost of Yote to remain in the PlayStation ecosystem. While that news went largely unreported, on April 16th, 2026, the European Parliament held its hearing on the Stop Killing Games movement. And while the reception seemed warm, the European did something completely unexpected. They blinked for the first time in existence. The issue was fully debated by June 16, 2026, and the EU rejected making new regulations or new law regarding Stop Killing Games goals. Though as simple as they are, I feel they did not go far enough. And instead, the EU decided to impose a voluntary code of conduct on the industry, which, if you've been a follower of mine or the W2 report of any length of time, isn't really worth the paper it's printed on. So Rockstar and Sony took that as the green light to pursue its goals. First, Rockstar started the party by announcing a $100 price tag on the real basic edition of Grand Theft Auto 6, while leaving the poor plebs who could only afford the $80 price tag with nothing more than a "My parents visited Vice City and all they got me was a stupid t-shirt" as a fucking cosmetic. Then, it was later announced, the same day mind you, that physical copies of GTA 6 were nothing more than glorified code holders. No physical disc was ever going to be included, not even 3 months later for the console plebs, despite reports to the contrary. All of this happened on June 25th, 2026, a mere days after the EU Parliament issued their rejection to the Stop Killing Games movement. Sony decided to have a hold my beer moment by issuing a statement not even a week later that 551 movies and TV shows would be removed from people's accounts due to a license expiration with Studio Canal. Obviously, there would be no refunds for those who purchased Studio Canal movies, such as The Terminator, Rambo, and even Rocky. But that's neither here nor there. Because the big news happens on July 1st. Sony, in a couple of now infamous PlayStation blog posts, announced that it was discontinuing new sales on PS3 and PS Vita storefronts that went largely ignored for the bigger fish. the declaration of war on the PS4 and PS5 and PS in all future physical media. The decision went largely untold to PlayStation partners or even branch managers if a report by outlet High Chaos Run is to be believed. Not even PlayStation India, who was in the process of setting up 100 PlayStation physical stores by 2028, was looped into the decision, which suggests that someone quite high up at Sony made the decision without consultation. And if SEC filings are to be believed, then I know who to blame. 48 hours after the announcement occurred, Sony President Hiroki Toki sold 225,000 shares of Sony stock. This was after he assumed the position of Sony President in April 2025. Sony Chairman Kenichiro Yoshida also sold Sony stock to the tune of 400,000 shares on May 19th. This, according to Quiver Quantitative. Also selling were Chief Strategy Officer Miyamoto Toshimoto at 25,000 shares on July 3rd, and Kodera Tsuyoshi selling 68,500 shares in two parts, mind you. First off, in 17,500 shares on May 18th, and the 51,000 shares on June 17th. So let's set up all the timeline here. March 2026. Sony removes all mention of single-player titles from PC. April 16th was the Stop Killing Games movement hearing. April 25th, 2026, the current president of Sony was appointed. Hiroyuki Tokugi. On May 18th through 19th, 2026, Sony chairman Kenichiro Yoshida sells 400,000 shares of Sony stock, valued at $9 million. Chief Digital Officer Kodera Toshioshi sells 17,500 shares of Sony stock, worth at the time $395,675. June 16th, 2026. The EU rejects the Stop Killing Games movement demands and instead forms a voluntary ethics board. June 17th, 2026. Chief Digital Officer sells an additional 51,000 shares of Sony stock, valued at $1,047,540, for a grand total of $1.74 million that he earned through Sony stock. June 25th, 2026. The Grand Theft Auto debacle, which you all know that the $100 price tag and the no physical disc bit is going to rub people the wrong way. About June 28th, 2026, Sony removes without refunds 551 Studio Canal movies from libraries. July 1st, 2026, no more physical discs for new PlayStation games in 2028. July 3rd, 2026, Sony President Tokugi Hikoki sells 225,000 shares of Sony stock, valued at $4,729,500 shares. Chief Strategy Officer Mimoto Toshimoto also sells 25,000 shares of Sony stock, valued at $25,500. July 7th, 2026. Sony tweets on X after 6 days of radio silence. This is way longer than usual. This is the longest period of company history on the platform. You know it's bad when you get ratioed and community noted in every post from now until Jesus comes for this bad decision. Well, yes, I will address the monopoly allegations at the Irving Tales this August. The point is that Sony received the proverbial green light from the European Union, the last people to expect this from, to kill ownership. I suppose that when you have people who have direct financial ties to Sony, like Dr. Serkan Toto of Keiko University, who says that, quote, I sympathize with physical media fans, but Sony will not reverse this decision. They, of course, knew that the online reaction would look like, and now they are waiting for the storm to pass. Do they really? Do they think reports of people receiving 50% off coupons for 3 months plus speak for itself? I think that reports of people receiving 50% off coupons for 3 months plus speak for itself, Professor Toto. The pushback is working, but I don't think it's working hard enough. But I'm reminded of words from one Charlton Heston.
Every time our country stands in the path of danger, an instinct seems to summon her finest first, those who truly understand her. When freedom shivers in the cold shadow of true peril, it's always the patriots who first hear the call. When loss of liberty is looming, as it is now, the siren sounds first in the hearts of freedom's vanguard. The smoke in the air of our Concord bridges and Pearl Harbors is always smelled first by the farmers who come from their simple homes to find the fire and fight, because they know that sacred stuff resides in that wooden stock and blued steel, something that gives the most common man the most uncommon of freedoms. When ordinary hands can possess such an extraordinary instrument, that symbolizes the full measure of human dignity and liberty. That's why those 5 words issue an irresistible call to us all, and we muster. So, as we set out this year to defeat the divisive forces that would take freedom away, I want to say those fighting words for everyone within the sound of my voice to hear and to heed, and especially for you, Mr. Gore. From my cold, dead hands,